After Xie Chongjing ascended, he took only 2 people with him. One was our son, Xie Zhao, and the other was his beloved moonlight, Meng Yueyao. His son was his bloodline, and he would not let him fade into the crowd. His beloved moonlight was his benefactor, and he would keep the promise he made to her. Only me, he said. Luiying, you and I are husband and wife. If I wait any longer, I will bring Zhaoer to reunite with you. In my previous life, because of these words, I waited for 3 years and 3 more. In the end, I died alone, never seeing his figure. In this life, I won't wait for him to return. I set out on the journey from home. From now on, he will cultivate his immortality, and I will be mine. Mountains are high and rivers are long, we need not meet again. 1. I traded a basket of eggs for 30 coins from Aunt Wang at the village entrance. She teased me with a smile. Isn't the Qingyun sect a sect dedicated to cultivating the Tao? Immortals live by drinking dew and absorbing spiritual energy. You're about to follow Master Xie to that divine land, so why do you need money? The Master Xie she was referring to was my husband, Xie Chongjing. He's the renowned swordsman of the Qingyun sect. 3 days ago, he achieved enlightenment and ascended to heaven. The Qingyun sect sent a special disciple to welcome him back to the sect. Xie Chongjing announced in front of everyone that he was taking 2 people back with him. Before that, he had to settle his worldly affairs. Everyone assumed he was taking me and our son, Xie Zhao. But that wasn't the case. In either past or present lives, I wasn't among the people Xie Chongjing was taking. I gathered the money in my sleeve. I smiled and half-jokingly explained. Xie Chongjing is an immortal, and I'm not. How could I survive without money? Besides, this money wasn't for my trip to Qingyun sect. It was my travel expenses. That's right. Qingyun sect is so big, there must be somewhere to spend money. Seeing my point, Aunt Wang agreed. I didn't respond. After exchanging the money, I headed home. Before I even reached the courtyard gate, I heard laughter coming from inside. In the center of the courtyard, Xie Zhao was practicing sword control. He swayed unsteadily on his sword. From time to time, he called out, "Dad, I feel like I'm going to fall." A steady mind stabilizes the sword. The man called Dad spoke in a cold, clear voice. He stood with his hands behind his back, his posture elegant. He was never mortal, and now, having attained enlightenment, he had acquired a certain air of an immortal, untainted by the mundane. That was my husband, Xie Chongjing. 5 years ago, he passed through here and settled down. We were married at the village chief's urging. Although he was dressed like an ordinary person at the time, he exuded an extraordinary aura, unlike any other. I later learned that he was actually the eldest disciple of the Qingyun sect's leader. A gifted swordsman who had achieved foundation establishment and core formation in his teens. 2. There was another person in the courtyard. She was a graceful woman. Her eyes and eyebrows were gentle. She didn't have the cold and detached demeanor of Xie Chongjing. Instead, she patiently and kindly taught Xie Zhao. Seeing him stagger, she kept reaching out worriedly, afraid he'd fall. That was Meng Yueyao. I don't know what words to use when I mention her. Because I have no connection with her. Only Xie Chongjing and Xie Zhao were extremely close to her. It was already noon. Whips of white smoke rose from the nearby countryside. Outside, the chirping of birds and cicadas in the trees blended harmoniously. Amidst all this, the scene inside the house resembled a happy family of 3, peaceful and beautiful. I couldn't help but wonder. In my previous life, without me, Xie Chongjing took Xie Zhao and Meng Yueyao to the Qingyun sect. Atop the Qingyun sect mountaintop, were they living the same way they do now? I paused for a moment, my gaze fixed. Xie Chongjing noticed me. Those who cultivate the Tao are perceptive. He sensed an extra breath and gazed intently toward the courtyard entrance. As if disturbed by an uninvited guest, I could clearly see a chill gathering in his eyes. Until he saw it was me, he looked surprised. Firefly. 3. In fact, in my previous life, I had long forgotten Xie Changjing's face. Decades had passed. If I remember correctly, our last meeting was just these past 2 days. Seeing him in this life, I suddenly realized. Oh, so this is what he looks like. Seeing I didn't respond, Xie Changjing frowned slightly. He walked over to my side and raised his hand to touch my forehead. What's wrong? I instinctively tried to avoid him. Xie Changjing paused, his cold gaze suddenly becoming profoundly dark. At this moment, Xie Zhao had already dismounted from his sword. He was only 4 years old, yet he already possessed a mastery of emotion. Seeing me, the smile on his small face faded, his expression becoming serious and formal. Mother, he said, his tone tinged with the maturity of a teenager. He was polite, but he always seemed distant. I used to think Xie Zhao inherited Xie Changjing's temperament. That's why he treated people this way. But after a lifetime, I understand this isn't the case. He could be approachable and childlike. But with me, he was always strict and reserved, a bit distant. Even during our last encounter in my previous life, he was like this. The cold, indifferent air was like a sword thrust into the snowy landscape. He no longer called me mother, but Jiang. My father and I have long been enlightened, unburdened by the mundane world. Jiang, you're too attached. You should let go and return home. I waited for them for decades. From youth to old age. But I still didn't get to see them. Until I lay languishing on my deathbed, holding on to my last breath. The shabby gate finally opened. I thought it was Xie Changjing, and called out his name. But he interrupted me coldly. Father is in seclusion cultivating. Please don't disturb me. It was then that I realized the person who had returned wasn't Xie Changjing. It was Xie Zhao. I've heard that those who cultivate can maintain their youthful beauty. The grown-up Xie Zhao looked exactly like Xie Changjing in his 20s. The same cold, distant brows, the same indifferent gaze. Falling upon my withered form, I felt like a mere, lightly falling leaf. Xie Zhao said he had returned to see me now to restore the little bloodline I had given him. He was busy returning to his cultivation, asking me not to waste his time. Perhaps his words had angered me in my previous life. Or perhaps I had truly reached the end of my life. Soon after he finished speaking, I closed my eyes. Opening them again, I was transported back to the day Xie Changjing ascended. I had originally intended to trade that basket of eggs for a tassel for Xie Changjing's immortal sword. But once I woke up, I realized I would not repeat the mistakes of my previous life. 4. Xie Changjing could leave if he wanted, and Xie Zhao could be close to whomever she wanted. I would not insist on anything more. Yes. I nodded. I was about to head back inside when Xie Zhao called me again. Mother. This time his voice sounded a little impatient. I thought he had something to say. I looked at him puzzledly, only to see his lips pursed, his eyes sparkling as he stared at me. Today, Daddy taught me how to fly a sword. I saw it. I was about to nod to show I understood. Suddenly, I remembered some small details from my past life. No matter what Xie Zhao did, I would ask him about it when I got home. And then I'd praise him profusely. For example, if he was practicing water control today, I'd tell him he was amazing, and that he could help me water the vegetable garden. Although Xie Zhao always told me with a stern face, "These are just some simple techniques, silly mother, you wouldn't understand them." I could still see the arrogance and enjoyment in his little personality. And today, he learned how to fly a sword. I didn't say anything, my reaction was quite cold. It's no wonder Xie Zhao brought it up to me. But I harbor a grudge, and even after my rebirth, I still can't let it go. Well, I still need to work on it. The bright expression on Xie Zhao's face suddenly dimmed. He snorted coldly and turned to ask Meng Yueyao. Auntie Yu, am I any good? Of course. Meng Yueyao praised him with a beaming smile. Xia Zhao asked Meng Yueyao if he could take him to buy candied haws. Meng Yueyao nodded, and Xia Zhao took her hand as they passed me. I'll buy 3, one for Dad, one for you, and one for me. He seemed to be saying this deliberately for my own ears. In the past, I would have been alone and dejected. But now. That's all. 5. I walked into the house and put the 30 coins I'd exchanged into the box. While packing my luggage, I first picked up Xia Chongjing and Xia Zhao's clothes. Just as I was about to set it aside, Xia Chongjing walked in. He observed my movements and said, "Qingyun sect already has all these things. No need to take them." I looked at him in surprise. I immediately realized he had misunderstood. Xia Chongjing walked up to me, his gaze cold and focused on me. "Lu Ying, we'll set off tomorrow," he said. I know. He had said this the day he ascended. He said it would take another 3 days to deal with mundane matters. After 3 days, he would return to Qingyun sect. At this time in my previous life, I was still thinking. When Xia Chongjing ascended, he would definitely take Zhao and me with him. With us gone, what mundane matters would he have left to worry about? I later learned that his mundane matters were me. And the people he was taking with him were Xia Zhao and Meng Yueyao. I could understand Xia Zhao after all, he was Xia Chongjing's bloodline. But Meng Yueyao, I still harbor a grudge. Why? Even though Xia Chongjing explained it to me. It was because of Meng Yueyao's life-saving grace. He had made her a promise. And Meng Yueyao said she hoped to become a disciple in the Qingyun sect. Yueyao's aptitude is still limited, and the Qingyun sect's rules are strict. This is the only way to get her into the Qingyun sect. So, I became the one left behind. In my previous life, I inevitably argued with Xia Chongjing over this matter. But in the end, I was defeated by Xia Zhao's words. Xia Zhao said, "What can you do there? Farm and feed chickens." Under Xia Chongjing's guidance, Xia Zhao, at a young age, had a heart for the people and a selfless spirit. He felt that instead of me occupying a position as an immortal cultivator and doing nothing, it would be better to leave the position for someone in need. 6. And in my previous life I gave up. These were Meng Yueyao's final words. She said, "Qingyun sect is the foremost sect of immortal cultivation. Do you intend to let others laugh at Zhao and brother Xia, whose mother and wife are ordinary mortals? What's wrong with being mortal?" Back then, it was Xia Chongjing who said he wanted to marry a mortal like me. I was filled with anger and resentment. Meng Yueyao sneered. "Brother Xia only married you so he could experience the tribulation of love and ascend to heaven. 5 years ago, Xia Chongjing passed through this place while exorcising demons. He was destined to undergo a tribulation of love here. Xia Chongjing didn't know who it was. But he knew that to do so, he had to meet a woman. So, pretending to be thirsty, he entered the village and asked for a bowl of water. The first door he knocked on was my house. Fate has guided him, and the first woman he met was his own tribulation. How else do you think you, an orphan without a father or mother, could possibly win his favor?" The sneer in Meng Yueyao's eyes drained the blood from my face bit by bit. Of course I wanted to question Xia Chongjing. But that night they quietly left while I slept. The last breath I held before dying was just to hold on, to see Xia Chongjing, and ask him if it was really like that. Alas, I never saw him. After my rebirth, I still wondered. Why not go back a few more years to the day Xia Chongjing knocked on my door? Then I would have thrown the bowl of water to the ground in front of him. But fate had been like that. After experiencing the agonizing weight and stubborn delusion of my previous life, I no longer wanted to pursue the answer. In a sense, Xia Chongjing's tribulation was over. Mine, too. So, it was time for me to live my own life. So, experiencing the moment Xie Changjing told me he was taking Meng Yueyao and Xie Zhao away again, I accepted this fact quite calmly. And over the next few days, I carefully planned the rest of my life. 7. But unexpectedly, because of my recent cold and indifferent behavior, Xie Changjing thought I was mad at him. Lu Ying, I know you're reluctant, but a gentleman's promise is worth 1,000 gold. You and I are husband and wife. I promise you, when I have time, I'll bring Zhao back to reunite with you. Seeing that I didn't respond and instead packed my things, Xie Changjing looked at me with a frown. He made the same promise he made in his previous life. His tone softened. But I won't be like my previous life again. Because of these words, I waited for him for 3 years after 3 years. And because of Meng Yueya's words, I tormented myself for 3 years after 3 years. Yeah, okay. I know. I understand. I get it. I packed my bag while perfunctorily answering Xie Changjing. Seeing I didn't want to talk anymore, Xie Changjing's eyes were complicated. He glanced at me again and again, wanting to say something but hesitantly before finally turning and leaving. 8. The next morning, I was awakened by the chirping of birds outside the window. I opened my eyes and realized that today was the day Xie Changjing and Xie Zhao were leaving. It was also the day I was leaving. The sound of conversation drifted from outside the yard. The faint aroma of food lingered in the air. I walked outside and saw Meng Yueyao washing her hands at the stove preparing soup. Xie Zhao stood beside her, his small figure staring eagerly at the freshly cooked dim sum. Meng Yueyao was gentle, picking up a little with her chopsticks and feeding him. It's delicious. Aunt Yu, yours is even better than my mother's. Really? Then I'll make it often from now on. Meng Yueyao's smile widened. As the two were talking, Xie Changjing approached them. Yueyao, you're a guest. You don't need to do these things. Meng Yueyao's eyes curved, and her voice softly replied. We'll be leaving for Qingyun Sec soon, and doing this is a way to acclimate ourselves. After all, with Miss Lu Ying away, I have to take care of you for her. Hearing this, Xie Changjing fell silent. After a long pause, he finally said, Thank you for your hard work. His back was turned to me, so I couldn't see his expression. But I could tell from his voice that it was gentle. Just then, Xie Zhao held their hands again. Dad, Aunt Yu, don't worry. Zhao will take care of himself. He spoke earnestly. Laughter immediately erupted from the courtyard. Until my presence broke the silence. This time, all 3 of them noticed me. Meng Yueyao spoke first, a faint smile in her eyes. Miss Lu Ying, you're awake. Come and try some of my new snacks. She had a certain air of being the center of attention. Coincidentally, from where I was standing, Meng Yueyao seemed to be protected by Xie Changjing and his son. This reminded me of some things that happened between Meng Yueyao and me. It wasn't a big deal, actually. I just didn't like Meng Yueyao coming to our house. But Meng Yueyao was Xie Changjing and Xie Zhao's savior. Xie Zhao was very fond of her, and always begged her to come to our house. At that time, I saw Xie Zhao and Meng Yueyao getting close. I felt jealous but couldn't say it out loud. So I had to secretly ask Xie Changjing to speak up for me. When Xie Changjing heard this, he blamed me for being ignorant. Zhao's personality is good. It's good for him to be close to others. Why are you restricting him? Instead of being jealous, you should think about it carefully. Why can't I please Zhao like Yueyao? His words were like a bucket of cold water poured over my head. I was instantly speechless. Later, I gradually understood. Why? Simply because I'm a mortal. Where Xie Changjing and Meng Yueyao are both cultivators. Xie Zhao had admired Xie Changjing since childhood. He knew his father was a distinguished figure. He also hoped to one day become a talented swordsman like him. Xie Chongjing also had high hopes for Xie Zhao. Father and son often discussed and sparred. I wanted to join them. But I didn't understand what they were talking about, such as concentrating the mind and gathering the energy, building the foundation, and forming the elixir. As time went by, the two of them spoke less and less to me. Xie Zhao even said, "Mortals are stupid, but mothers are even stupider." But he was also born to a mortal like me, wasn't he? I felt sad, so I stopped asking about their cultivation. While they practiced, I fed the chickens and ducks, wove cloth, and made knitting yarn nearby. Life was quite peaceful and tranquil. Until one day, Xie Chongjing and Xie Zhao went out to practice. Xie Zhao strayed into a dangerous valley. Xie Chongjing was injured while protecting Xie Zhao. It was Meng Yueyao, a passing visitor, who saved them. Meng Yueyao was a medicine cultivator. Although her cultivation wasn't as advanced as Xie Chongjing's, she was the only other person with such cultivation, besides Xie Chongjing, Xie Zhao had ever met. Furthermore, Meng Yueyao, having learned of Xie Chongjing's identity, stayed in our small village to further her practice. She accompanied Xie Chongjing and his son in their practice. One day, Meng Yueyao came again. I had intended to ask her for advice on medicine cultivation. After all, I figured, since swordsmanship wasn't working for me, I'd try another path. To my surprise, Meng Yueyao listened to me. A smile spread across her face, her eyes gazing at me with mockery. "Miss Luiying, cultivators need spiritual roots, but you don't have them. Don't waste your energy." I was a little angry. I felt she wasn't as kind-hearted as Zhaoer had described her. So, I didn't want Zhaoer to get close to her. Unexpectedly, Meng Yueyao left because of this, and Xie Zhao and Xie Chongjing blamed me. Xie Zhao, in particular, cried and beat me. "It's all your fault. It's you who drove Aunt Yu away." To appease him, Xie Chongjing flew through the night on his sword to find Meng Yueyao after she left. That was how the two of them gathered around her. They formed a clear contrast with me, who was all alone. 10. I didn't dwell on Meng Yueyao's subtle arrogance and pride. I just said, "No need," and walked out. Xie Chongjing then noticed the basket in my hand. His expression changed. "Luiying, where are you going?" His tone was subtly tinged with panic, and he reached out to stop me. I remained calm, "Going to Auntie Wang to exchange some eggs." "If you're leaving, you should at least take some food with you, right?" Xie Zhao curled his lips. "Mother, we can fly to Qingyun sect in a day by flying swords. We won't need any food at all." He seemed to think I was wasting my time. Of course I knew. But I wasn't really going to exchange eggs. Xie Chongjing, on the other hand, breathed a sigh of relief when he heard what I said. "Then come back soon." "Okay. I beg your pardon." I walked towards the village entrance. Behind me were green fields and rolling hills. Morning birds flitted across the white sky. A gentle breeze blew. They had their own way home, and I had mine. 11. Xie Chongjing. It was already noon, but there was still no sign of Jiang Luiying on the path at the village entrance. Xie Chongjing was lost in thought. Zhaoer had already come running over, carrying a small bag and his sword. "Dad, when are we leaving? Your mother hasn't come back yet." "We haven't said goodbye to her yet," Xie Chongjing said. Xie Zhao imitated him, tiptoeing and glancing towards the village entrance. "So when will mother come back?" Xie Chongjing didn't know. His heart seemed to be hanging in the air. Without Luiying, he couldn't find peace. "Wait a little longer." Xie Zhao pursed his lips, wanting to say something, but remained silent. He sat obediently on the doorstep, resting his face in his arms. A moment later, Meng Yueyao approached. "Brother Xie, Zhaoer, aren't we leaving yet? We're waiting for mother to come back." "Why hasn't she come back yet?" It was Xie Zhao who answered. His face wrinkled, a look of bewilderment. Meng Yueyao blinked, her voice soft. I think Miss Luiying is deliberately hiding from home. Why? Xie Zhao's eyes widened. Meng Yueyao said, perhaps she can't bear the sight of separation. People are like that. Once a heart is filled with worry, separation feels like a knife cutting and a burning fire. Xie Chongjing lowered his eyes. He felt that Meng Yueyao had a point. Luiying dreaded separation. In the past, whenever she took Zhao out to practice, she would worry all night. And then she would always ask herself, when will you be back? Even if she was given a specific time, Luiying still felt uneasy. Every time they agreed to return home, she would wait at the village entrance early. At the sight of them, she would run towards them with joy, like a dejected blade of grass suddenly infused with spiritual power. Ask her why she was so anxious. She said that in the past, every time it was dinner time, the village adults would call the children who were out playing home to eat. Back then, it seemed like every household had someone waiting at their door. Sometimes, when children returned from school, the adults hadn't finished their work in the fields yet. The children would gather on the ridges at the village entrance, playing and waiting. But she, no matter what she did, had no one waiting for her, and no one to wait for. But ever since he and Xie Zhao came into her life, Luiying felt that everything was different. Although most of the time, she spent waiting. Only this time, Xie Chongjing waited for her, but she didn't see him. Since Luiying was deliberately avoiding him. What was the point in him waiting any longer? Besides, he had stayed here to experience the tribulation of love. Now that his tribulation had passed, he had successfully ascended. He should be firm in his Tao and practice diligently. How could he be confined to earthly love? Xie Chongjing clenched his immortal sword, lowering his eyes and gathering his thoughts. Let's go. Xie Zhao rose from the ground. Dad, aren't we going to wait for Mother anymore? No. That was what he said. But Xie Chongjing still left behind a jade token and a letter. The jade token was a Qingyun sect message. The letter explained how to use it. He would see it when Luiying returned home. If she missed him, she could send a message through the jade token. Then his immortal sword would respond. Given her temperament, it wouldn't take more than 3 days. No, he might even hear from Luiying as soon as he returned to Qingyun sect. So Xie Chongjing thought. Then he took Xie Zhao and Meng Yueyao back to Qingyun sect. But 3 days passed, then a month. Xie Chongjing's sword remained silent. Even as it swung its sharp sword flower in Xie Chongjing's hand. Xie Chongjing hadn't even received the signal specifically for Luiying. Impossible. How could Luiying possibly hold back? A chaotic stream of thoughts flooded Xie Chongjing's mind. He had no time to practice swordplay. Just then, a disciple from the sect reported back. Xie Zhao had been slacking off in his training today. Xie Chongjing frowned and went to find Xie Zhao. He just happened to see Meng Yueyao exiting with an awkward expression. Xie Zhao's voice rang out from inside. This wasn't a mortal courtyard, there was no room for him to act recklessly. Xie Chongjing scolded. Xie Zhao's eyes and nose were red, and his eyes, like Luiying's, stared at him eagerly. Xie Chongjing was helpless, yet a wave of admiration welled up in him. Zhao, why aren't you practicing swordplay today? Dad, I missed Mom. Xie Chongjing paused slightly, and Xie Zhao couldn't help but sniff. I want to eat the egg custard Mom makes. Your aunt, you can make it too. That's different. Dad, when are we going back to see Mom? Xie Zhao looked up at him expectantly. Xie Chongjing's heart was stirred, but he suppressed it. When you've finished your training, I'll take you back to see her. Really? Really? Xie Zhao was delighted. He swept away his recent sadness and made room for Xie Chongjing. Dad, sleep with me tonight. I want to hear your stories about Mom. 14. He and Luiying. Xie Chongjing had thought he couldn't remember anything about Luoying. But as he thought about it, he recalled the year he first arrived in the village. According to destiny, he met a woman to overcome a love crisis. That woman was Luoying. To marry her, he stayed here. As he learned about Luoying's life, he became acquainted with everyone. The villagers said Luoying was a well-behaved and quiet girl. She had no parents, but she had a kind heart. At the time, Xie Chongjing thought she was quite nice. Those who practice cultivation are pure-hearted and uncommunicative. But as they got to know her, Xie Chongjing discovered that Luoying actually talked quite a lot. She talked while eating and sleeping, and the entire courtyard was filled with a buzz because of her voice. Xie Chongjing felt that the villager's description was wrong. He couldn't help but ask Luoying why the Luoying he knew was different from the one the villagers knew. Luoying smiled sheepishly. I used to be all alone, with no one to talk to. So she talked to the grass, the stars, and the pets she kept. But they couldn't talk. Now that I have you, I finally have someone to talk to. Luoying's eyes lit up with joy. Xie Chongjing, who had always disliked chatter, gave up trying to get her to talk less. Later, he asked the village chief to propose to Luoying. To this day, he still remembers the scene of his wedding day. A large crowd gathered in the courtyard. Amidst the crowd's cheers, he lifted the bride's red veil. The lanterns cast a bright and boisterous light, and Luoying blushed. Her bright, moist eyes seemed to hold a pool of autumn water. The village was shrouded in darkness, cicadas chirped in the fields, and the sky was filled with stars. A gentle night breeze blew, and Xie Chongjing's heart drifted a little with the swaying red tassel. And, moved by a moment of joy, he neglected his cultivation. He thought, what fate had said was true. Luoying was his love tribulation. Knowing this, Xie Chongjing was compelled to remain true to his heart. He had even decided to leave her alone after the tribulation. Luoying was immortal, with a lifespan of only 100 years. Rather than taking her back to Qingyun sect to continue influencing him, it would be better to leave this position to someone who needed it. Xie Zhao inherited his bloodline and possessed a natural talent for cultivation. As for Meng Yueyao, it was just a matter of convenience. Now he had suddenly attained enlightenment and ascended to heaven. I should have been happy for his tribulation. But now, my mind was unsettled, my sword was restless, and my Taoist heart was unstable. 15. When the first spring rain fell, I set up a wonton stall at the river crossing. My wontons were delicious and affordable. Within 3 months, the stall had begun to attract repeat customers. Mrs. Luoying, a bowl of wontons. Okay, wait a moment. After selling the last bowl of wontons, I would go to the old woman selling vegetables at the other end of the bridge and order her newly grown vegetables. When I paid, the old woman handed me a handful of fresh wild shepherd's purse. Here, picked from the mountains. No charge, it's yours. I looked at the juicy handful of wild vegetables in the basket, and my heart warmed. I thanked her and left 2 cents. As I turned to leave, I suddenly heard someone next to me ask the old woman, "Why are you giving her wild vegetables again? This child is so pitiful. Her husband died at such a young age, and that's why she ended up here. So that's how it is." The old woman told the men my story, drawing sighs of regret from everyone around. My mind paused as I listened. But I said nothing and left as usual. This was the first year since I left. I stayed in an obscure mountain town. It was nestled by the mountains and rivers, and the people were simple, mostly making a living by fishing and boat trading. As a widow, I made up a story about my husband's early death. At first, I felt a little guilty. But then I thought about it more carefully. In my previous life, I died alone, without my husband and son by my side, which was no different from being a widow. This life is similar. But there's one difference. I rarely remember Xie Chongjing and Xie Zhao anymore. It's only when I'm busy with something that their images suddenly flash through my mind. In my previous life, I was trapped by them, suffering greatly. Now, every day as I watch the boats come and go, the ever-changing crowds at the ferry, I feel an inner peace and tranquility. Sometimes I even wonder, is this a dream, or is it reality? Until half a month later. Two figures, one large and one small, appeared in front of my wonton stall. The steam from the wonton pot mingled with the early spring river vapor, bringing a warm feeling to my face. Standing in the mist, the two men gave me a vague sense of ethereal, otherworldly etherealness. I squinted my eyes and studied them for a long time. Only then did I detect a hint of familiarity in their faces. Xie Chongjing and Xie Zhao. How did they end up here? 16. I was curious and surprised, but customers began to arrive. I put aside my doubts and returned to my work. I only stopped after finishing the morning's work. Looking back, I saw the two still standing there. Did the guests want wontons? Without waiting for a reply, I gestured to a seat to the side. Please take a seat. Xie Zhao's eyes were bright and blazing, a hint of restrained joy and excitement hidden within them. Nevertheless, Xie Chongjing, standing beside him, stood still as a distant mountain. His cold eyes, perhaps tinged by the early spring chill or something else, were dark and deep, their emotions indistinguishable. I handed them 2 bowls of wontons. As soon as I set them down, I heard Xie Zhao's tearful voice. Mother. The word mother made my eyebrows jump. But even more perplexing than that was how Xie Chongjing and Xie Zhao ended up here. After all, in my previous life, ever since Xie Chongjing and Xie Zhao left, I hadn't seen them again. And now? I had doubts, but Xie Zhao's words quickly revealed the answer. It turns out they had left Qingyun sect 6 months ago. Xie Chongjing had originally promised Xie Zhao that he would bring him back to see me once his cultivation improved. But unexpectedly, when the two returned to the village, they found their former courtyard not only empty but also desolate. Confused, Xie Zhao asked Xie Chongjing why their home had changed so much after only 6 months away. But Xie Chongjing sensed something. He eagerly walked inside. He discovered a thick layer of dust covering the room. The jade plaque and letter he had placed on the table had never been moved. Panicked, Xie Chongjing sought out familiar villagers. Aunt Wang was delighted to see him. Isn't this immortal Xie? Why are you back? Aunt Wang, have you seen Luiying? Luiying? Didn't she go with you to Qingyun sect? Aunt Wang looked bewildered. I told her about the day I'd traded eggs for 30 coins. Xie Chongjing suddenly thought of the basket I'd carried the day they'd left. Instantly, it dawned on me. I'd left that morning and never returned. So to find me, they were afraid something might have happened to me. Xie Chongjing had been searching for me for 6 months with Xie Zhao. So that's how it was. After hearing this, I finally understood. But I still felt puzzled. This hadn't happened in my previous life. And given Xie Chongjing's temperament, he should have been able to help Xie Zhao's longing for me fade with daily practice. Why would he allow him to come looking for me now? I thought so, but my heart wasn't moved at all. I'd already seen Xie Zhao's last appearance in his previous life. I figured his longing for me now was only temporary. So I lowered my eyes and looked at Xie Zhao. Now that you've seen him, should you be relieved? Hurry back and practice diligently with your father. Xie Zhao's face had been a touch of joy when he saw me talking to him. But when he heard my last words, his smile froze. He stared at me blankly. His clear, innocent eyes suddenly misted over. Of course I knew why. But I said nothing and began to pack up my stall. But just as my hand touched the bowls in front of the two men, a thin, strong hand grabbed my wrist. Luiying. The voice was faint. Deep. I raised my eyes, meeting a pair of brows as cool and steady as the eternal river. Xie Chongjing's gaze was as deep and profound as the abyss. I held his gaze for a moment, seeing a faint flicker of brilliance and forbearance in his eyes. It was exactly the same as Xie Zhao's. Xie Chongjing asked, "Are you still angry?" 17. I hadn't known when the rain had begun again. The black boat moored at the ferry pier made a crackling sound. Through the rain and the river mist, Xie Chongjing's helpless voice reached my ears. Xie Chongjing said, "If I wasn't angry, why would I leave without saying goodbye? Why wouldn't I return home for a year? And why wouldn't I be so happy to see them?" According to Xie Chongjing's thoughts, we had been apart for so long, and now that we meet again, I should be overwhelmed with joy and tears. Not like I am now, distant and cold. Everything I'm showing now. In Xie Chongjing's view, it was just him venting his anger. I still resented the decision he made when he ascended that day. A sense of absurdity welled up in my heart. Not for myself but for Xie Chongjing. I had assumed that Xie Chongjing, like me, had already overcome his fate and moved on from his past. But unexpectedly, he remained where he was. "Not really," I answered him. Xie Chongjing didn't believe me. He held my hand firmly, his gaze fixed. He seemed to be trying to find even a hint of deceit in my eyes. But I was honest and had nothing to hide. Xie Chongjing's eyes flickered slightly, a hint of panic emerging. After that day, I had assumed Xie Chongjing would leave. But he didn't. He rented the other half of my courtyard. We lived next door to each other. Although it felt awkward, it wasn't my house, and I had no say. I was the same as before. But Xie Chongjing seemed a different person. In the past, he wouldn't slack off in his training, eager to return to Qingyun sect. But now, when I set up shop, he followed me. When I went shopping, he followed me. The old ladies and customers I used to know noticed a new person behind me or next to my stall. They couldn't help but ask, "Madame Luiying, who is this?" "Just a neighbor." "Oh, he's so handsome." "Could it be, is he married?" 18. Besides that, there was Xie Zhao. Xie Zhao didn't notice anything unusual between Xie Chongjing and me. He just thought the three of us were living together again. He rose every morning to practice swordplay from morning till night. When he saw me, he raised his voice and called me mother. I saw beads of sweat on his forehead, but his eyes still gleamed brightly at me. I knew he wanted me to praise him again. But I simply asked, "This place doesn't have as much spiritual energy as Qingyun sect. Why don't you go back and cultivate?" Dad said that a gentleman practices according to the way. Whether in Qingyun sect or in the mortal world, following one's heart is cultivation. Xie Zhao was serious and formal, with a touch of the immortal air. Hearing this, I said nothing more. After all, Xie Chongjing hadn't said that before. Another day, I returned from my stall. I heard voices in the courtyard. "Mr. Xie, I see you're handsome and impressive, so I've come here specifically to propose marriage for you." Xie Chongjing had been here for only a month. But his reputation had spread throughout the small town. "Propose a marriage?" "Yes, young Master Xie is still unmarried, right? I have several girls from good families here, I promise you." "Who told you I'm unmarried?" "I already have a wife and a beloved." Xie Chongjing frowned. He had the aloof, oppressive air of a high position. The matchmaker hesitated. Xie Zhao glared at her. "I have a mother. Jiang Luiying is my mother." The matchmaker was surprised, then suddenly waved her handkerchief and said with a smile, "So it's Miss Luiying that the young master likes. Oh, you should have told me earlier. I can talk about a second marriage, too. It's just that Miss Luiying is a recent widow. Her husband passed away a year ago. I'm afraid her fate is uncertain, and she's not worthy of you." With these words, the courtyard fell silent. Suddenly, a cold wind blew, enveloping him in a chill. Xie Chongjing stood in the courtyard, his figure frozen, his gaze blazing. What did you say? The matchmaker, assuming he didn't believe her, nodded. That's what she said, but no one else believed it. Either she's the mistress of some wealthy family, or a divorced woman, otherwise, why is she alone? That's nonsense. Xie Chongjing suddenly shouted. The matchmaker was startled and patted her chest to appease him. That's not what I said, it's what everyone says. Besides, if that's not the case, then why doesn't her husband show up? Hasn't he written to her in a year or two? She must have been abandoned. Xie Chongjing's face drained of all color, turning pale. The matchmaker was frightened, thinking she'd violated some taboo. She said, "Come back if you need anything," and was about to leave. On her way out, she bumped into me. She gave me a guilty look, not turning back. I entered the courtyard and met Xie Chongjing's eyes. That night, he asked me, "Luiying, why do you say I'm dead?" Could I tell anyone else what I was saying? My husband went to cultivate. Others would think I'd lost my mind. What's more, in his previous life, he and Xie Zhao had never returned since they left. How was this any different from being dead? Xie Chongjing felt as if an arrow had pierced his heart, his body suddenly losing strength. He understood. When he left me in the village, he must have imagined the rumors I would face. But he still chose to take Meng Yueyao away. The pain I endured from that arrow piercing my heart was no less than his. 19. Since then, Xie Chongjing and I have been strangers. But Xie Chongjing continued to follow me, his own way. I tried to ignore him, but it still affected me. After a few days of this, I finally couldn't help but seek him out. But before I could say anything, the courtyard welcomed another uninvited guest. Brother Xie. Is it worth it to miss your training just for a mortal? Although I hadn't seen Meng Yueyao for a long time. Is her voice still familiar to me? She stood in the center of the courtyard, clutching a divine sword. Her graceful features were etched with anger. Xie Chongjing didn't respond. He simply stood on the steps, looking down. Yueyao, I promised you that day to take you back to the Qingyan sect. Now we're even. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. Why? Just because of Jiang Luiying. She's just a mortal, why do you keep thinking about her? She's a mortal, but she's also my wife. Meng Yueyao was interrupted. Xie Chongjing said, I used to think I only saw her as a calamity on my path to ascension, but that's not the case. I love her, and I want to take her back to Qingyan sect. Even if mortals only live for a few decades, I want to be her husband for decades. Meng Yueyao gritted her teeth. Humor and resentment filled her eyes. Unable to persuade Xie Chongjing, she came looking for me. At that moment, I was about to take a pot of fresh wontons out of the wok. Her immortal sword, shimmering with silver light, soared through the air. With a clang, it pierced my stall. Everyone around me was startled. Only I, with a calm gaze, gazed at Meng Yueyao as she entered from the crowd. Jiang Luiying, are you satisfied now? It's all because of you that Brother Xie gave up cultivation. She glared at me indignantly. I used to think mortals would be biased when judging right and wrong. I never expected immortals to be biased too. I was the one being abandoned. It was me that Xie Chongjing used as a stepping stone for his emotional tribulation and ascension. It was me who was deceived and lied to. But in Meng Yueyao's eyes, it was me who was at fault. Meng Yueyao sneered. How can you compare yourself to Brother Xie? He did this to better protect the people. But I am one of them, am I not? I asked, puzzled. If Xie Chongjing were truly selfless, how could he deceive a woman's feelings for the sake of cultivation and ascension? And now, for me, he has abandoned his cultivation and abandoned the people. Doesn't this contradict his original actions? In the end, he still blames me for the crime. 20 Meng Yueyao couldn't argue with me, and she remained angry. She could only repeat herself. If you hadn't left, how could brother Xie be like this? According to you, I should have resigned myself to fate, stayed in the village, and waited patiently for Xie Changjing's return. If he remembered me, and missed me for a moment on his path to immortality, that would be considered affection. Even better, perhaps he'd come down to see me once every 10 or 8 years. Would that fulfill our former love and his sense of justice? Should I have been so worried and self-pitying? Waiting for someone from youth to old age. In the end, being pitied by the world, dying alone after a sigh of infatuation. Not like this now. Heartless and ungrateful, just letting go. Why? Why bother? Besides, I've already experienced such days in my past life. But 10 years of infatuation, 10 years of madness, 10 years of yearning. Time passed in a blur, and this longed for reunion was 2 lifetimes away. Birth, old age, sickness and death, love and separation, unattainable. My heart has changed. 21. I glared at Meng Yueyao fiercely. His gaze was resounding. A cool breeze began to pick up at the ferry crossing. A sense of desolation washed over me. And just then, the wind and clouds suddenly shifted. Dark clouds like thick ink rolled across the sky, bursts of thunder echoed from between. It seemed as if the world was about to topple, but the next moment, a brilliant rosy glow and boundless blue waters appeared. Meng Yueyao's face paled as she looked from sky to earth, then back at me. How could this be? How could you possibly? She muttered to herself, her words incoherent. I looked at her in confusion. But suddenly, I felt another gaze resting on me. Xie Changjing. I didn't know when he had arrived. Although his expression wasn't as grim as Meng Yueyao's. But as if struck by a thunderbolt, his gaze fell on me with a complex expression. 22. When I once wanted to cultivate the Tao. Both Xie Changjing and Meng Yueyao said I lacked spiritual roots. I couldn't embark on this journey. But now, they could never have imagined that one day, I would attain enlightenment in a mortal body. Just one step away from ascension. The Tao gives birth to all things, and the world has its own natural laws. Everything in the past is like yesterday's death. Everything in the future is like today's birth. That's all. Seeing Xie Changjing arrive, Meng Yueyao stopped pestering me. Love is a matter of will, and no one should interfere. Meng Yueyao, frustrated and disappointed, stamped her foot and turned away. On the contrary, Xie Changjing. From the moment we met until now, every step he took towards me was incredibly difficult. Lu Ying. He stared at me, as if he was looking deep into my heart. He was a prodigy in the Tao, able to understand his destiny after ascending. My character had changed, but he had never considered why. Until today, he finally realized something. Xie Changjing stopped pestering me. He decided to take Xie Zhao back to Qingyun sect. The day we left, Xie Zhao kept looking back. Mother, I will practice diligently. He promised me, holding back tears. Xie Zhao said this because Xie Changjing had found me yesterday. Seeing my enlightenment, he realized there was no hope for us. But the only thing he was worried about was Xie Zhao. In Qingyun sect, Zhao practices diligently every day, just to see you soon. He misses you so much and wants to apologize to you so much. Lu Ying, I've let you down, and it's all right if you hate me. But Zhao, can you? Xie Changjing's eyes suddenly welled up. He looked at me with a humble, pleading look. I understood what he meant. Zhao is now only a teenager. He's a world away from the cold-hearted, emotionless men of his previous life. He's filled with joy to see me. Xie Changjing couldn't bear to see him leave with disappointment and sadness. So I told Xie Zhao. Tell him to cultivate diligently and return to reunite with us after completing his studies. Xie Zhao nodded vigorously, shouldering his small bag and sword. Mother, you must wait for me. But I know that day will never come again. From now on, he cultivates his immortality, and I remain my own person. Mountains are high and rivers are long, and we'll never meet again. I looked at Xie Chongjing and saw the glint in his eyes fade. Thank you. No need to thank me. If Zhao truly has a heart to help the world, then what I'm doing is simply following the flow. I began. Xie Chongjing hesitated. Then he pulled a jade-colored token from his pocket and handed it to me. This token can be used to send messages. If you call me, I will appear even if we're thousands of miles apart. I don't need it. Xie Chongjing's face paled even further. He murmured as if not having heard me, and continued. Besides, I've hidden a ray of my spiritual power within it, to protect you in times of danger. When I'm away, you must eat well. It's cold at night, Southwest, remember to close the windows when you sleep. He seemed to have 1,000 words to say, chattering away. I frowned. Xie Chongjing reached out to touch the hair between my brows, but stopped short of my gaze. My lady, please take good care of yourself. 23. That was the last time I saw Xie Chongjing. For many years thereafter, I entered the world to cultivate my mind and experience all living things. I attained enlightenment in the mundane world and returned to it. During this time, although I never met my old friends again, I did hear some news from afar. Meng Yueyao had achieved some success in her cultivation, but had hit a bottleneck. After leaving Qingyun sect, she journeyed to the southern lands plagued by beasts. Now she practices medicine and becomes a wandering immortal. Then, Qingyun sect opened its doors to teach disciples. Countless talented individuals and immortal cultivators flocked to the sect in pursuit of their reputation. And the most shocking thing was this. The person presiding over the opening ceremony was a gifted young man, who had achieved Dan elixir formation at the age of 13. Rumor has it that he was the descendant of the Qingyun sect's head disciple, born from a mortal woman during his journey through the world. Now, this disciple is in seclusion, cultivating and refining his Tao. After that, I heard little from them. Until many years later, I revisited my old place. The once obscure mountain town and village had become famous because of the immortal cultivators who had stopped there to seek enlightenment. There were several wonton stalls at the ferry crossing. Different cultivators sat scattered in front of each stall. They were discussing last night's astrological signs. A star fell in the southeast, a sign of an immortal's ascension. I had originally planned to listen in for fun. When I stood up, I was startled to see the jade token hanging from my waist suddenly fall to the ground, shattering into pieces. Looking up again, I saw a young cultivator who bore a striking resemblance to Xie Chongjing standing at the table. Mother. Xie Zhao. I have inherited my father's will, and will remain in the Qingyun sect. I have entered the world to sever my ties to the mundane. Mother, I have once glimpsed the destiny of heaven, and I have something to ask you. Xie Zhao carried a sword. His figure was like a spring breeze caressing a green bamboo, his chastity untouched by snow and frost. I already understood what he was asking. The gaze he gazed into was calm and peaceful. Xie Zhao seemed to sense it too. He didn't need to speak, he already had the answer he wanted. Xie Zhao stammered, the color fading. In the end, his eyes brimmed with red. Mother, I'm an unfilial child. I sighed. I couldn't say, it's okay, nor could I offer a single word of comfort. The plum rain season had arrived again in the mountain city. The sound of water dripped, the ferry seemed intoxicated, and a thin mist hung thick. In this world, leaving without saying goodbye is a farewell. In this world, I've walked thousands of miles alone.